Welcome to Let's Talk Recovery Equity, a series of conversations about how we can reach and help more people find freedom from addiction. This series offers us an important space to reflect on some of the complexities of substance use and mental health conditions and consider new pathways to hope, recovery, and healing. I'm your host, Andrew Williams, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Hazelton Betty Ford Foundation. Today, I'm very excited to welcome back our guest, Celina Mahinalani Garza. Celina is a Kanaka Maoli, or Native Hawaiian, also identifies as Portuguese, Mexican Native American with Texas roots. Currently, she is the coordinator and facilitator for the Native Strongmen Project, a health and wellness program held 100% online, which was launched in July 2020 and was successful in recruiting over 180 Native men across the country to actively participate via Zoom classes and groups. She is also the founder of Native Lifeway. Celina specializes in creating meaningful connections as an Indigenous advocate and practitioner of wellness, mind, body, spirit. Celina's background includes mind-body transformational psychology and traditional ecological knowledge. She's an energetic, motivational facilitator who masterfully integrates cultural tradition, spirituality, holistic healing modalities, and movement as medicine, and uses these modalities to positively motivate people from the inside out. Hello, Celina. Welcome back. It's great to see
That
you
always
today.
makes me blush.
Oh, well, it's from the heart. You know, I've been looking forward to part two of our conversation from the moment our first conversation ended. And so again, thank you for your generosity of time and spirit today.
Thank you. Super excited on this sunny morning here in Arizona. I'm 20 minutes out of Phoenix, and we've been over 110 for the last, few days, and got some rain. And so it dries up, and then there's a lot of sticky humidity. But really grateful. Thanks for having me again.
Me too. I'm glad that although we're in diverse geographic positions, that we can both kind of benefit from the radiance of the sun this morning, because it's very sunny and beautiful here in Minnesota today. You know, I always like to start our interviews by giving our viewers and listeners a chance to get to know a little bit more about you just as a person. And you know, one of my favorite, and I think among the most beautiful and powerful kind of intercultural exercises I've done with students and community members is an exercise developed by Beverly Tatum, an African-American psychologist. And this exercise is entitled I Am From, and it creates sort of a space and process for participants to develop a 4-stanza poem. And each kind of stanza in the poem begins with the phrase, I am from. And I'm just gonna ask you to, in some ways, if you don't mind, improvise with us this morning and to respond to this first prompt, which is I am from. And in the first prompt, as Tatum describes it, ask us to kind of talk about the sights, the sounds, the smells of the neighborhood communities that you grew up in. And so if you could, tell us, where are you from?
Love that. I'm so excited to do this because it sounds like it's going to end in a really descriptive kind of who I am and where I'm from. And then everyone who's listening and watching can know exactly where I'm from. So I would say I am from a small town full of rolling hills, green grasses, sprinkles with 4 seasons. I lived next to horses, so the smell of manure, if you will, woke me up each morning, but also the smell of fresh raspberries and strawberries growing in my side yard, and the smell of leather from my grandfather's saddle shop, and also the sound of trucks coming into the gravel driveway to come and see my grandfather, who was a saddle maker, and the smell of eggs and spam cooking on a Saturday or Sunday, and a fresh pot of rice that I started for our family to eat, and the sound of laughter and the sound of my brother's music with his stereo, big speakers he was putting in an old Oldsmobile. and the sound of my sisters running back and in and out of the house, and my mom getting after them, telling them, don't slam the door and be quiet.
Well, thank you, Celina, for being willing to kind of go poetic with us, today and giving us such a really rich window, into sort of the sights, the sounds, the smells of the cultural communities that you grew up in. In our last interview, we spent a good amount of time talking about the range of programs that you've started and that you lead, some of which I described in the introduction. I want to maybe take our conversation now to the next level and really kind of dig in and look at maybe with a more focused lens issues of addiction and recovery and healing in the Native communities that you work in. And if you would, could you please share with our viewers maybe a few important points you think are important for us to understand about the contours of addiction and importantly, recovery and healing in the Native communities that you work with?
Mhm. Yeah, thanks for asking that. I definitely think that healing looks different for everyone, and also recovery and um, what healthy looks like to you and to I may look different to someone who is trying to get healthier, and making smaller baby steps. Some of the different places that focus on recovery that I've been really honored to work with and blessed to have the opportunity to work with some of these places. Working in recovery does look different because you feel and see the different bright colors and the different activities that are happening, the songs, the language, the friendships, the families. It seems to me, and what I have been, just experiencing, is the rich culture and the food that comes along with it. And it feels like home. And it's kind of strange to say that, because when we think about people in transition, we're thinking about people in recovery, we uh, either taken away from where they usually live on a reservation, or thinking about maybe even being displaced for their families. If we look at a non-native residential place, it does feel different. Um, I feel like when we go to some of these other places, there's art. There's really a lot of color. We hear a lot of music, um, crafting, reading, a lot of aunties or grandmas who are also, working on getting healthier. Or maybe, just taking a vacation is sometimes what they call it. You could tell that they've taken the lead to take care of some of the other younger clients and participants that are there. So it is really different. A lot of going out is what they call it, just going to sightsee. Because a lot of the people and a lot of our people who are suffering or trying to get healthier have been, I don't want to say stuck on a reservation, but away from the city. Like you and I, we can drive out 15 minutes and go to the grocery store like we, want to, or go see a movie or go out to the mall. And some of the people who are living in different reservations have to drive an hour or two just to get to the grocery store um, to seek help and healing. So it is very different. I think also the grouping. I think also the opportunities to participate in different ceremony. And it might sound strange to non-native people or people who've never participated in any of our cultural events or ceremonies, or know anyone who participates in any of that. The ceremony is constantly being taken place, and the people are taking advantage of it, because I would say half of our people, half of the clients have never participated. They've only heard about it for whatever reason. And so when people are coming to healing centers, they're having the opportunity to meet other people and participate in ceremony. So it is really different.
No, thank you, Celina, for that response. And I really think you help us all to more fully understand, right, the complexities, both of, in some ways, how addiction manifests itself. And I think partly what you help us appreciate, right, are the cultural complexities of Native communities, and that there's no sort of singular approach that could work for all Native people, or not even necessarily for all Native people within one specific, right, tribal group or reservation, right? And that's kind of the challenge of this work, right, is to grapple with that complexity and to figure out how to respond to that in nimble, right, and culturally attentive ways. And I think what's clear to me as you share, right, what you shared, that as we work to kind of develop, diverse kind of culturally attentive approaches, where there are some core threads that are consistent. You talk about food, and really when you share that, it's food as medicine. And the second stanza that we're asked to write in that I Am From poem is to talk about the foods, right, that were associated with growing up and celebrations, right? And you can see the faces light up as everyone shares that, right? And there's just something healing, right, about being connected to your comfort food. And then of course, we also know there's that next level of work of making sure that the food we're putting in our bodies is medicine, right? And not working to in some ways accelerate or put up a barrier to our healing. But you also talk about the centrality of culture, obviously cultural traditions, which really resonates with some of the work I've been doing with Native youth. When we talk with them in our recovery sessions and we ask them, what's your vision of recovery? They repeatedly talk about, I want to return to Native singing. I want to return to dance, or I can't wait for the fall to be out with my family as we brand our cattle and engage in all the different traditions and rituals that are a part of that. So I appreciate you giving us a window to what that looks like, right, in the communities that you work with there. I'm wondering if you could perhaps dig in a little bit deeper and talk some, not just maybe about the barriers. You did note the barriers to getting support and healing, and some of that's just about geography and space and the lack of transportation. I wonder if you could maybe speak to some of the other barriers that are in the way, and then maybe after that, if you could speak to some of the specific healing modalities that you use in your practice with Native communities.
Yeah, I always get a little bit passionate when we're talking about challenges and obstacles and barriers. Um, there's this perception that if someone wants to go and detox, or someone wants to stop drinking or stop using, then all it is a car ride, and there's all these places that are available. It's a scary place, if you've never been away from home and never been away from your community, the people who look like you, sound like you. Um, First of all, it's just an uncomfortable situation, Native people seeking help, especially, Native men. With my experience in the last 2 years, that ask is so uncomfortable. But who do you ask? Some of these opportunities to go to these different transitional living detox centers, um, and transitional living, where they're plentiful here in Arizona, and day centers sometimes is what they call them out here. Um, it's an uncomfortable situation because you don't know where to start. A lot of programs are ran by non-Native people, so you don't know how they're going to treat you or receive you. So I would say that would be, the first. And then, the other part of that is the different health disparities that come along with a person. Say, for an example, um, someone who is struggling with addiction as far as abusing prescription drugs that the doctors so easily will write for someone who's having back pain or headaches, and um, because of our family's background and mine specifically with mind body spiritual psychology and understanding how that all works with us, is once we start introducing and then start abusing any type of mind altering substances, everything is kind of upside down and backwards. We never feel the same anymore. The longest journey from here to here, right? Um, it's never the same. And so when we're thinking about going away from our home and seeking help from a program, someone could have that, right? Someone could be suffering with addiction from the opiates, but on top of that, have high blood pressure. On top of that, not have glasses where they've only been able to and are familiar with things around their house. If you're looking at the healthcare system for um, Indian Health Services, it's like this. You really got to ask a lot of questions and know someone who's already been there and done that. So just simple things that some of us take for granted for getting glasses in a good way, dental care. A lot of our Native people, unfortunately, are really suffering from the lack of dental care. And we know that with our dental care's health, right, in our mouth, the health of our mouth, right? Infections, teeth that need to be removed. So that access to care, you mentioned transportation, that's huge. How are we going to get back and forth to these places? How am I going to pay for some of these things? And that's kind of a scary place too. We just have to kind of go to a place that accepts health services, the access. Uh, so there's just so many, family members who are sick too, on top of that. Consistently getting the medication that we need or never started. The doctor prescribed meds and never started them. I've heard the same thing about some of our people who are incarcerated, never knowing that their A1C or their sugars are out of control and over 13, that the gauge, you can't even read it. Their A1C is super out of control. So the medication that they're getting is when they're incarcerated. They start to even feel better once they're incarcerated. So it's kind of the same thing where we're thinking about our people seeking recovery and healing is that access to care because of other health elements, other health disparities, whether it be for ourselves, our family, and then also our children. We're going to take care of our children. The good thing is our family systems with Native people is, auntie will take care of our mother, grandma, and, you know, childcare in general is difficult for a lot of us anyways. But when we're thinking about that, a lot of us come from families who are families raising other people's children who weren't able to care for. So just the lack of already to begin with, and then the lack of resources as far as our own daily care. So prescription meds, and making sure that they stay consistent, and making sure that it's important enough. The caseworkers there already have full load. So it's it's kind of like trickle, this trickle effect there that's happening when we're seeking care. So our health, that would be, you know, another big one.
Yeah,
Um,
Celina, I so appreciate your answer, and I think one of the lasting gifts I'll take away from this is this image you've given us, that the long journey, that the longest journey is from the heart, right, into the mind. And what I appreciate about your response, right, is it kind of is also both a heart response and a head response, right? You've helped us develop empathy, help our viewers and listeners to understand that, hey, there's a lot of barriers between having it in your heart and knowing, having that recognition and awareness that you need healing, right, to getting to the intellectual, the decision making, right, that you need to seek to seek care. And you've kind of really helped us to understand, right, at an intellectual level, all the different, right, social barriers, political, economic barriers, and the way in which health disparities themselves, right, create new barriers, right, to seeking hope and healing. But what I also like about what you just shared there at the end is that reminder, which you do in all of our conversations we've had, right, is that, hey, a reminder that our Native communities are not passive victims, that within their communities, within their hearts, right, are the cultural resources, there's the social networks, the family community networks, and the soul force, right, to begin to advance both individual, family, and community healing.
yeah, I think that we always go back to that. And I think that's why some of our recovery centers, treatment centers, if you want to call them that, are successful, because they are helping our clients, our, family members. I've been to several and different conferences even where clients and participants are there, and they're not called clients and participants, they're relatives, because we are all related. And so the feeling of being whole, when you mentioned like, what did it smell like in your house, right? So when I smell spam cooking, even though that's not the best and the most healthiest to eat, it's comforting, just like the smell of fresh coffee, you know? So at a lot of these places, we're smelling the medicines like sage, we're smelling sweetgrass after ceremony. When you go to a sweat, you're smelling the grandfather stones. You're smelling sweat too. But even in that, it's comforting because, we know that when we participate in some of these traditional ceremonies like a sweat, is that sweat is detoxing us. That sweat is helping carry those prayers. The hotter the stone, the better the prayer. And so, just thinking about some of the different ways that we heal and the way that we introduce people to the different modalities of healing and offering it. It's not like, okay, here's a class, here's a group, this is what you're going to do. It's more of an introduction and an invitation. Always like to invite people to participate if it feels good to you. And a lot of our traditional knowledge and understanding is if it doesn't feel good to you, doesn't pull at your heart, or if it doesn't feel good in, I was gonna say your belly button, we call it our nut, your guts, like in your gut knowing, right? That gut feeling. If it doesn't pull to you, when it doesn't um, feel right at that moment, it doesn't mean that you totally discount it. It means that you pay attention to your own inner knowing. Because in a lot of our belief systems is we already have all the answers. Sometimes it just gets buried with the different choices we make. It could be anything. It could be the foods we eat. It could be the way we wake up in the morning and forgetting to pray and acknowledge the sunshine and the new day. It could be, rushing our kids out the door, being yelling at them, being crabby, getting after them, forgetting something. So it's in the way that we give, but also in the way we truly receive something. So if it doesn't feel good, helping our people know to pay attention to that because that will make a difference in our overall health and our overall healing and our overall happiness, right? It also helps our people remember that they are um, free of choice, right? That we have free will, that we should be choosing, helping people to make the better choice moving forward.
Absolutely. Your last comments around the importance of Native people trusting their gut really resonates with something I learned from a local Puerto Rican activist and artist, Ricardo Levine Morales, who in a session we were participating in around police brutality in a global perspective, told us all that we need to trust our intuition because our intuition has many teachers. And your last response there really kind of speaks to that and the value of, again, that we have the inner knowledge to help us make the right choices. And I think that's a great note to end on. Unfortunately, and as I had a sense would be the case, our time together has gone by much too fast, and we have to close out when there's much more conversation, right, for us to have. But I'll look forward to that possibility in the future, whether it be on your journey here to Minnesota or sometime in the future. But again, I just want to thank you so much for your generosity of spirit and time today. And please know that we recognize and value and appreciate the soul growing healing work that you do in Native communities in your region and, of course, around our country.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, for the opportunity and just the really good way that you carry this series, interview people and give people like us who are doing the good work in the community, because there's more of us. And I think the humbleness around being a Native person too. I, I think that I speak for all of us when I say thank you because we need good advocates like you and we need good actionists like you, right? And we can talk all day long, but if we're not doing anything about it, it's kind of like, yes, we can advocate, and be on the sidelines, be a good cheerleader, but what are we going to do about it? So thank you, because we need more people like you and like Lisa and like John, who are getting right into the community and offering the opportunity for us to share our good medicine in this way so that we can reach audiences near and far and wide. So I'm really glad for this platform. And I would love to give you some suggestions for other people if you're interested to share some of their medicine and just some of their experiences, because that's kind of how we get the word out, right? So we can help our communities as a whole and in the next 7 generations. Thank you so much. Have a really good rest of your day. And thank you, everyone, for listening and keeping your heart open and your ears open to the health and the healing that is still taking place. So it's not all bad. There's awesome things happening too. So just
Definitely.
be open to that.
Well, I'm glad that the ancestors have guided us together, and I look forward again to working in solidarity with you and many others as we work to advance health equity and healing in Native communities and across BIPOC communities all around our country. To all of you listening or watching today, I want to express my gratitude for you taking the time to join us for this very important and soul-growing conversation. Please let your friends, your family members, your colleagues know about these important conversations that are part of our series. And we hope you'll come back often to catch more episodes of Let's Talk Recovery Equity. Together, we can advance health equity and bring loving care into the reach of all in need. Thank you.